Hi everyone, my name is Mesa. I make games, but games also made me, and this is Final Fantasy X. So Final Fantasy X is a role-playing game made by the Japanese publisher Square Enix, and it was released in 2001, coincidentally the year that Shrek was released, but also the year that I was born. Yippee! Final Fantasy X was released on the PS2, and it was a huge improvement from Final Fantasy IX. It was honestly absolutely insane. The first game to ever have a fully voice-acted cast.
So what's our goal?
To do our best!
As well as these beautiful 3D environments. And so today I'm going to take you on a little trip, a quick plot crash course of one of my favorite games of all time. First, we have to talk about him. So this is Tidus. He's the main character of Final Fantasy X, and when you first meet him, he is a himbo, blonde, crybaby, nepo baby, spoiled brat, sports star. He excels in a sport called Blitzball, and he's the star of the Xanarkand Apes, which is the Blitzball team of his hometown of Xanarkand. So the thing to know about Tidus is that he has a lot of daddy issues, in that his father was a raging alcoholic, verbally abusive, and also a star blitzball player, so much so that Tidus lives in his shadow to this day. 10 years after his father one day went off to get milk, they are still broadcasting videos of his father JRPG in Xanarkand. Not only was his father just a terrible person to Tidus, Tidus suddenly had mommy issues too, because all his mother would do is go off to the dock and stare at the sea, longing for JRPG to come home. And Tidus would be like, "Mommy, mommy, I'm hungry. Can I have some food?" And his mom would just be like, "No, honey, I'm just gonna stand here and keep looking out into the ocean waiting for your father to come back," which is pretty messed up. Tidus is like, "Mommy, mommy, do you love me?" And no, she's just hung up over Tidus's father, JRPG, who Tidus also hates. And then his mom dies. So dad's missing, mom's dead, living in his father's shadow. He is having a rough time. Then one day, him and his team are playing Blitzball when suddenly this huge fish-looking creature just starts crashing out. It appears and suddenly destroys the entire arena, and Tidus is hanging from a ledge, about to just fall into this crazy abyss as this fish continues crashing out and destroying buildings and all these things. And his old friend Auron, who's like this old, well no, he's not old. This middle-aged man starts T-posing right above Tidus, and he's basically screaming at him like, "Tidus, this is your story, the time is now." And Tidus is like, "Oh my goodness." The fish continues crashing out, and Tidus falls into a void, into a pit. And he wakes up, like, in the middle of the ocean. These random people who are wearing these rustic astronaut suits fish him out of the sea. And they're all speaking in a language that he doesn't understand. And this language is Albed.
Right?
Honestly, what Tidus really needs right now is to understand what in the heck they're saying. If only someone made a game, maybe like a cozy island RPG sim that tricks you into learning a new language where you can farm, fish, and bake in a fully immersive virtual world. Conversation is the battlefield, and your words are weapons. Wow, if only someone made a game just like that. Well, lucky for Tidus and lucky for you, that's a great segue into today's sponsor, which is me and my game Palmier Island, where you can do just that! Unfortunately for Tidus, he didn't get the chance to play Palmier Island, so he's just really confused. But luckily, one of the Albedians can speak his language.
He said you can stay if you make yourself useful.
You understand me?
She says, "You know, where are you from?" And Tidus says, "Xanarkand." And she's like, "That's ridiculous. Xanarkand was destroyed 1,000 years ago." So Tidus is like, "Great. A fish came, destroyed my hometown, and now I'm being told that I'm 1,000 years in the future." But then the fish comes back, and the Albed are like, "Oh, that's Sin, S-I-N." And I sincerely apologize for any sin puns throughout the rest of this video. Anyways, Sin comes, the big fish, and starts crashing out again, and Tidus falls into the water, and he's washed up on this beach. And on the beach, there's Jake the dog from Adventure Time. I'm not kidding.
Hey, you okay?
And he's playing blitzball. And obviously, blitzball is, you know, Tidus's thing. And just like all beautiful male friendships start, they play blitzball and they throw the ball at him. And then Tidus, you know, shows off, does some tricks, and he's like, bam, bam, bam. Him and Jake the dog, whose name is actually Waka, are suddenly really good friends. Actually, I forgot to say something very, very important about Tidus and his daddy issues. If we go back to slide 4, in the bottom right corner, you will see that Tidus is so traumatized by his father that there is a literal minigame where his father yells verbal abuse out at you while you have to button mash to hit a blitzball. If you're able to button mash correctly, you get to earn Tidus's ultimate blitzball technique. Anyways, back to the main plot. So Waka is the guy that fishes Tidus out of the sea. Another thing about him is that he's really crazy about this guy named Yevon. And Yevon is sort of like the god of the world that Tidus has been transported to, which is called Spira. Basically, Yevon's teachings say that the reason why Sin, the big fish, exists and just kills people all the time is because the people of Spira are all sinners. And 1,000 years ago, they got too obsessed with machines called Machina, and because humans created Machina, Sin suddenly appeared one day to start killing all of them. And so the only way to get rid of Sin is to pray, and apologize and repent for all wrongdoings. So Waka and Tidus go back to Waka's hometown on the island Besaid, and they roll up to this temple because Waka is getting worried. One of his childhood friends is inside the temple. So they go to the temple to see what's up, and out of the temple comes a very beautiful girl. This is Yuna, and right after Yuna, there are 2 more people that follow her, Lulu and Kimahri. All you need to know about Lulu is her, Waka, and Yuna are all childhood friends, and Lulu is like sort of like a parental older sister figure. What you need to know about Kimahri is that everyone who has played Final Fantasy X kind of hates him for being useless for no reason, so it's a bit of a meme. That night there's a bit of like a bonfire, a campfire, and that's when Yuna and Tidus talk for the first time. And she drops some lore on him about why she was in that temple and what the heck is going on. So basically, like I said, 1,000 years ago, there was this huge war with Sin and everything. Luckily for the people, they don't just have to pray and pray and pray for Sin to go away. Oh my gosh, bars. But there are these people called summoners, and Yuna is a summoner. And what these summoners do is basically this. So when people die on Spira, they become like ghosty boys. They become ghosts, also known as Faith. So one thing that you can do to Faith is that you can send them off. They can like basically let their souls rest in peace. But another thing that Faith can do is they can be summoned into these things called Aeons. And Aeons are these super huge and powerful magical beasts, just like Pokemon. And what summoners do is that they can turn Faith into Aeons. If they capture all the Aeons, they can perform something called the final summoning. This final summoning at the end of their pilgrimage to catch all the Aeons can make Sin actually go nappy time for a few years. If I can remember correctly, the nappy time of Sin has become shorter and shorter and shorter. And so Yuna is a summoner, and Kimahri and Lulu and Waka are her guardians. So they're basically like her sidekicks as she goes on this pilgrimage to catch them all. One other weird thing about the Faith is that if you don't send them off and rest their souls, they just turn into monsters. Like they lose sight of everything that made them human that you have to fight in game. And so Tidus, he's pretty homeless. He's from 1,000 years ago. He's got no passport, no Sin, no SSN. He's just chilling. So he's like, okay guys, I'm gonna join you. And he becomes one of Yuna's guardians. And they set off on their pilgrimage in order to make Sin go nappy time. One interesting thing that Tidus learns after a couple chats with Yuna is that Yuna actually knew Tidus's father, JECHTed. So remember how I said that JECHTed went off to get milk? Well, actually, instead of getting milk, he was transported to Spira in the exact same way that Tidus just was. And the reason why Yuna knows JECHTed and also has some daddy issues of her own is because her father was this man named Braska, and Braska was the one who caused Sin to have nappy time 10 years ago. So Yuna's mom was killed by Sin when she was really young, and after that, Yuna's father Braska decided to go on the pilgrimage. He performed the final summoning and was able to put Sin into nappy time before, of course, he re-emerged at the present day. And basically, JECHTed became Yuna's father's guardian. And Yuna only has good things to say about JECHTed, and of course Tidus only has bad things to say about JECHTed, but both of them are subJECHTed to the shadows of their fathers, essentially, and so they bond over that. I don't remember what the slide is. Oh, never mind, I remember now. So at some point, Tidus gets to see Sin in action. They're chilling at this really nice island beach resort hotel, and then Sin comes and just murders everyone, and Yuna has to perform the sending, which is the ceremony where she sends the souls of the dead to the far plane so that they do not become monsters. This is a pretty emotional moment for Tidus because as he watches Yuna perform the sending, he realizes that she actually carries all of Spira's hopes and burdens on her shoulders. Because her father was Braska, everyone sees her as, you know, the daughter of the great Braska who last put Sin to nappy time, and she really feels like she has to live up to that as well as be the hope of Spira, because at the end of her pilgrimage, she's going to be the one that puts Sin to nappy time. And then at some point, Auron, the guy who was T-posing over Tidus when he got swept away to Spira, also joins the party. And surprise, surprise, Yuna also knows him because Auron was also her father Braska's guardian. So the original trio of zesty besties on their way to put Sin to nappy time was Yuna's father, Tidus's father, as well as Auron. And then Tidus and Yuna share a very sweet moment where they basically talk about all the pressures that have been put on them since they were very young. And Yuna's like, you know what, Tidus, sometimes you just have to laugh it off. AHAHAHA. And Tidus is like, oh, AHAHAHA. And the two of them just go, AHAHAHAHAHA. See, this is a clip that I can't recreate. You have to watch it yourself because it'll transform your life. And then afterwards, Yuna's like, maybe we shouldn't laugh anymore. And Tidus is like, yeah, maybe not. And then Tidus teaches her how to whistle. And she fails miserably, but Tidus says, you know what, Yuna, whenever you whistle, I'll come for you. So I know you're supposed to be like hope of Spira and everything, but I'm gonna be your hope. Like, I will be the one that comes for you. So just whistle, which is so sweet. We've come such a long way from when he was a crybaby, nepo baby. One other thing that's quite startling is that Tidus, he feels a deep connection to Sin, and he feels like Sin is watching him in a way. And Auron confirms that, well, whoop-de-doo, Tidus, Sin is actually JRPGed, your father. So not only does Tidus hate his father for being not a great dad, now he hates his father for being this giant fish monster that goes being the reason of Spira's suffering for 1,000 years. So anyways, Tidus, it's personal for him now. Not only does he want to help Yuna in her quest, he also has a personal stake in this. He has to be the one to take JRPGed, now Sin, down. They also meet this guy named Seymour, and he's totally not evil from this great photo that I have of him. But essentially, Seymour, he's a pretty high up guy in the church of Yevon. Remember, the religion that everyone in Spira is super devoted to? Seymour is a human Guado mix. So the Guado are another race on Spira, and because of that, he's brought a lot of peace to the people of Spira, and he's pretty high up in the church. He has decided that he's going to use Machina, remember the machines that caused Sin to sprout out, in order to try to fight Sin. And you know, Wakka's crashing out because he's like, how could you heretic? But Seymour is young and he wants to try something new, so he gathers all of his Machina to attack Sin, and of course fails spectacularly. And then soon after, Yuna just gets kidnapped. A bunch of summoners have been getting kidnapped as of late, and this time it's Yuna's turn, so the whole gang saves her. Soon after, when the gang is just walking, they see one of the strange astronaut helmet suit people that Tidus first saw at the very beginning. And remember, those are the Albed. And the Albed have a pretty bad rep going on for them because they still continue to use Machina, so everyone, Wakka included, hates them to death. So they fish this Albed out of a river, and it's revealed that this is the Albed who actually kidnapped Yuna a couple slides ago. And this Albed is named Riku, who is also the person that Tidus met at the very beginning. And Riku is also Yuna's cousin because Yuna is half Albed as well. So bad news for Wakka. And Riku decides to join Yuna and her party as a guardian as well. After all of this happens, they decide to go to Guado Salam to see Seymour once again. And Seymour is basically like, hey Yuna, do you want to get married? Because it's going to be a great union. You're the daughter of Braska, and I'm, you know, Seymour, the Guado human. Let's get married and give hope to everyone in Spira. Yuna finds out that Seymour actually murdered his own father. Yay, patricide, I guess, but she agrees to marry him anyways and hides the fact that Seymour is a murderer to all of her friends. But then her condition for marriage is that Seymour turns himself in for killing his father. And of course, Seymour is like, why the heck would I do that? And everyone else finds out that he is a murderer. So they murder him, and Seymour is gone. The Guado Seymour is gone. And unfortunately, they're in Guado Salam, which is Seymour's town, and everyone's like, holy mother frick, you just killed Seymour. And before Yuna can send away his dead soul, they basically tell the party to get out. To make matters worse, everyone's favorite fish, Sin, comes back and causes the entire party to get thrown out of Guado Salam into an unknown destination. But the worst part is that Yuna is missing. So everyone else washes up on this desert and Yuna is gone. While they're at this desert, Tidus finally decides to ask the question to Riku. Riku, why in the world did you kidnap Yuna, and why have you, Albed, been kidnapping all these summoners? And Riku explains that basically they were trying to protect the summoners because they have to go on this huge pilgrimage and everything, and at the very end they have to sacrifice themselves in order to perform the final summoning to defeat Sin. So Tidus is shocked, he's completely blindsided because this whole time he had no idea that at the end of their journey Yuna was going to die. And everyone knew that Yuna was gonna die. She knew that she was gonna die, but Tidus was the only one who had no idea that she was gonna die in the end. And he's going through it. I mean, he crashes out. There's a lot of grieving involved because at this point he's deeply attached to Yuna, and he just feels like a bumbling fool because this whole time he was so happy-go-lucky about their quest when everyone knew that it was essentially a funeral procession for Yuna in the very end. And it puts into perspective a lot of the ways that she's been acting, like agreeing to marry the murderous Seymour because she knew she didn't have much time left to live and she was ready to make that sacrifice just like her father. Also, Seymour is back, and the reason why is because if you are unsent and you have a strong attachment to Spira, you can keep your identity and your physical form. So Seymour is just chilling. But Guado kidnapped Yuna to marry Seymour because his ghost was still chilling. His ghost is still walking and Seymour is still like completely conscious. But they don't need to save her. Yuna kind of saves herself during the wedding. She just jumps off a cliff and they all end up in jail, where they find out from Grandmaster Micah, who is the head of the Yevon religion, that the entire religion of Yevon is essentially a scam. Pray all you want, guys, but sin is never going away. And even if you follow everything the church says to a T, it doesn't even matter because sin is cyclical. He will always come back. Things are looking really bleak for the people of Spira, but the church doesn't care. They're having a great time. Oh my gosh, I was about to sneeze. There's like, this hair is it's been like tickling my face for the past 10 minutes. Anyways, after they successfully escape jail and kill Seymour for the second time, Yuna is having a really rough time because her faith in Yevon has been completely shaken because the entire religion is a scam. And Tidus goes to comfort her and basically he apologizes. He's like, I'm so sorry that I have been yapping about our future together this whole time. One of the promises that he makes to her early on is that he wants to show her Zanarkand, the city that everyone said was ruined 1,000 years ago. She was the only one who believed him because JECHTed was from Zanarkand and told her all about it. You know, I'm really sorry. I did not know that you were prepared to die and this whole thing was leading up to your death. And Yuna's like, oh, it's okay. I was actually really happy that you didn't know, and it made me happy that you had hope that we could be together in the future. It's really sad. He says basically, let's run away together, and she's like, okay, and they share a sweet moment, but then in the end she tells him, you know, it's just a dream. We can't run away together. Her duty to the people of Spira is her everything, and she can't let go of that. And so Tidus promises that he'll be with her until the very end. Oh my gosh, my arm is getting so tired. Oh, it's okay, it's worth it. They decide to continue on their pilgrimage to get the next Aeon, so they head over to Mount Gagazet, which is the home of Kimahri. And if you've forgotten who Kimahri is, don't worry, 99% of players of Final Fantasy X forget Kimahri as well. But at the top of Mount Gagazet, they find Seymour again. He's still alive. No, well, he's still dead, but still unsent. And he has just finished murdering all of Kimahri's kinsmen. R.I.P. And with 3,000 aura, he tells Kimahri, yours was truly a gallant race. And I don't know what it is about that line. My siblings and I meme it to death. We just think it's like the funniest thing. We murder him for the 3rd time. This form of Seymour Flux, is absolutely insane. This is one of the hardest boss battles in the game, maybe in all of Final Fantasy history, but it's so fun and so rewarding because allow me to geek out a little bit about the combat mechanics in this game. I know so far I've only been discussing the plot, but hear me out. Final Fantasy X has one of the greatest turn-based combat systems ever of all time. Final Fantasy X has traditional turn-based combat where, you know, you go, the enemy goes, you go, the enemy goes, but they've added an extra dimension of strategy to it by letting you rearrange the order in which you and the enemy go and having you plan for that. For example, Tidus can use move A, Tidus, enemy, or Tidus can use move B, which is way more powerful. So he'll go Tidus, but then the enemy will go like 3 times, enemy, and then Tidus again. Which, it sounds so simple, but it's actually so elegant because it adds another layer into your thought process on what moves you want to use and what order you want to use the characters. This is also the first time in Final Fantasy where you can swap out your team members in battle at that moment, and sometimes swapping out also messes up the entire order of attack, and it just makes gameplay and the battle so fun and so dynamic, and it's just amazing. So okay, I'm done. You gotta play this game. Like, oh my goodness. Mwah, like chef's kiss. It's just perfect. But anyways, you defeat Seymour Flux, all is well. And then finally, they go to perform the final summoning. And the final summoning takes place in the ruins of Zanarkand from 1,000 years ago. So they roll up there, and then they see this like ghost of a lady named Yuna Leska. And so in the Yevon religion, Yuna Leska was the very first summoner. So the very first to put sin to nappy time. So she's like this revered figure, and she sacrificed basically her life. So the gang meets Yuna Leska, and they see this really weird ghost flashback of Auron, a very young Auron, saying basically, I'm gonna kill you, Yuna Leska. And Yuna Leska going like, haha, and she just kills Auron in the flashback, and Auron dies. So this whole time, just like Seymour, Auron has been dead and he's been unsent. So let's back up here. Why in the world is Auron trying to kill Yuna Leska? Well, the reason why is this. So when they get there, Yuna Leska's like, hey Yuna, like you're ready to perform the final summoning, right? And Yuna's like, heck yeah. And Yuna Leska's like, great, now which one of your homies do you want to kill? And Yuna's like, what? What are you talking about, ma'am? She's like, well, in order to do the final summoning, you have to kill one of your guardians, turn them into Faith, and then summon them as an Aeon, and that's your final summoning. She's like, yeah, like I did it with my husband, I killed him and summoned him, and that's what happened all those years ago with the Zesty Besties with Tidus and Yuna's fathers. Basically, Braska turned JECHTed into the final summoning Aeon, and that's how JECHTed died. A side tangent here, if you do your homework throughout the game, there's these things called memory spheres that are just discoverable items, and when you watch them, you can see flashbacks of Braska, Auron, and JECHTed's previous pilgrimage, and throughout those memory spheres, you watch as JECHTed, first he's still a raging alcoholic, he's very upset that he suddenly got transported to Spira, but as time goes on, he reflects a lot on his relationship with Tidus, and all he wants to do is to go back to his son, and he sobers up and becomes a very honorable person, which Tidus can watch. It's almost tragic watching Tidus come to terms with the fact that his father did indeed love him very deeply. His father also abused him quite a bit, but two things aren't mutually exclusive, and in Tidus's case, they were simultaneously true. So at the end of their journey, JECHTed decides to abandon his dream of going back to Tidus again for the greater good, and he says, Braska, please sacrifice me, I'm ready to be the final Aeon, and he asks Auron to please take care of Tidus and watch over him for JECHTed, which is why at the very beginning in Tidus' Zanarkand, Auron is there to T-pose and tell him, this is your story, and Auron's been watching over him this whole time because that's what JECHTed wanted. And Auron was so outraged at this horrible cycle of sacrifice that he tried to fight Yuna Leska, and then she killed him. And so back to the present, Yuna decides there's no way in heck she's going to sacrifice one of her friends for this. She was prepared to die, but she's not prepared for any of her friends to die, and they decide that they're not going to continue this stupid cycle, and they're going to find a new way to defeat sin. So they kill Yuna Leska. And after they kill Yuna Leska, they go back to Bavel, the homeland of the Yevon religion, and they find out the real truth behind the War of the Machina from 1,000 years ago. So, This is about to get a little convoluted, so if you have like 5 brain cells left, you can actually understand this a little bit better. This is what happens. So 1,000 years ago, the War of the Machina was between 2 city-states. One of these city-states was Zanarkand, the one that was destroyed 1,000 years ago, and the other city-state was Bavel. And Bavel, currently the leader of the Yevon religion that says all Machina are evil and the Albed are horrible, that Bavel was actually the creator of the Machina. So they were this very advanced technological society, and they just decided that they wanted to beat up Zanarkand. So the leader of Zanarkand, his name was Yevon, had a great idea. He was like, okay, Bavel has Machina and they're way better than us. They're way stronger, way more powerful. So you know what I'm gonna do? I am going to massacre my entire population. So he just kills everyone in Zanarkand. And he's like, okay. I'm gonna spare my daughter, Yunalesca. I'm gonna spare my son-in-law, Yunalesca's husband. Okay, that's part 1. Step 2, I'm going to take all the souls of the dead people of Zanarkand, turn them into faith. And from this faith, I'm gonna summon an Aeon. And this Aeon is just going to be Dream Zanarkand. So he decides to kill everyone in real Zanarkand in order to create this like virtual world Zanarkand. And he's like, amazing. This is the best idea ever. So he does that, and he sends Dream Zanarkand to like the depths of the ocean so that it can be safe from Bavel. After that, he's like, let me take more souls of dead people, and he creates this huge armor that wraps himself, and this armor looks a lot like a giant fish and is the thing that people call Sin. And he has a few orders for Sin, that you have to destroy all Machina and also large human populations, aka Bavel. But obviously, as soon as this happens, Yevon, he's like inside Sin, and then he just loses all consciousness. And Sin is like, okay, like I'm gonna destroy machines and large groups of people. So he destroys Zanarkand. Good job, Yevon. You really thought this through. And then Yunalesca, literally Bavel's ops daughter, goes up to Bavel. She's like, I can get rid of Sin for you. Bavel's like, oh, okay, sure, let's hear it. And so that's when she kills her own husband and herself in order to put Sin into the very first snappy time. And because of that, Yunalesca's one condition of getting rid of Sin was that the people of Bavel start worshipping Yevon and Yunalesca as gods. Honestly, a part of me is like, this is so convoluted. Like, imagine your master plan for a war is that you just nuke your own city and then create a monster so terrible that your opponent begs you to get rid of the monster and then starts worshiping you. But a part of me does think it's kind of smart in that history never is as clear cut as it seems. So Bavel was Yevon's greatest opponent, and yet they ended up worshipping him for 1,000 years. So what we find out is that the Zanarkand that Tidus comes from and the Zanarkand that JECHTed came from is the Dream Zanarkand that Yevon decided to summon all those years ago. And what that means essentially is that Tidus is a dream. He is not real. He's not alive. He does not exist. And Tidus actually found this out a couple of slides back when they were at Mount Gagazet, but he decided to keep it to himself because he probably didn't really understand what was going on, but there were also more important things for them to worry about aside from Tidus just not being real. So he's just been a chill guy this whole time. He's like, cool, I'm not real, but you know what, that's okay. We all have our own traumas. We all have things we have to overcome and roll with. And so they decide we're gonna kill Sin directly. And before they can do that, Seymour comes back one last time. Seymour's master plan was essentially he wanted to become Sin and wreak havoc and destroy all of Spira because he hates the world, he hates himself, he's just very nihilistic. The crew's like, maybe don't do that, Seymour, and they kill him and finally are able to send him away. They get to Sin, it's the final showdown. Finally, Tidus versus his father, JECHTed. This is a really great emotional culmination of Tidus' entire journey. All he says to JECHTed is, I hate you, which is still true to this day, but a part of him has changed after realizing and coming to terms with his relationship with JECHTed and accepting that JECHTed did love him, but really messed him up too. And JECHTed is like, you know, come at me, boy. Like, I'm ready to die. I've been in this fish this whole time, killing and murdering all these people. Like, it's time. Please release me from this. And so they defeat JECHTed. And inside Sin is Yu Yevon. He just looks like a little buggy boy. The whole party squashes the bug. And then, of course, because Yu Yevon was the one that was summoning Dream Xanarkand, Tidus starts to fade away and disappear. He tries to hug Yuna, but uh-oh, his physical form is basically gone and he passes right through her, so he can't even hug her one last time. All his friends are shocked. They're like, why is this guy just dying in front of us? And he doesn't want his friends to see him die, so he jumps off of the ship that they're on into the water so that no one can witness his death. Yuna is hailed as the hero of Spira, as the one who defeated Sin, and is giving a speech thanking everyone who helped her along the way. At the very end, she's finally learned how to whistle, and so she whistles, hoping that Tidus will come back to her, and he never does. The end. Oh my goodness, what a wonderful, wonderful, not heartbreaking and gut-wrenching and crazily emotional story. Wow. Yeah. Some quick side notes in case you want some extra lore. So Seymour is pretty messed up, but for good reason. He was born again between Iguado and a human, and growing up he faced a lot of discrimination. And in order to circumvent this, his mother decided that she was going to kill herself and told Seymour that he should use her as a faith to summon an Aeon so powerful that no one could ever look down upon him again. He just has a very, very nihilistic view of life and wants to be Sin. Another interesting subplot is with Wakka. As I mentioned earlier, he's like very, very racist. He hates all Albed, and he goes through a crazy life crisis when he finds out that the Church of Yevon is a scam because Yevon was his everything, and he's able to grow through that and mature, and him and Riku become great buddies. One other thing is that him and Lulu are connected through the death of Wakka's brother. So the reason why Wakka hates the Machina and hates the Albed is because his brother was part of this army that was trying to fight Sin before and was killed by Machina, I believe. So Wakka is very deeply wounded by that, and Lulu was actually engaged to Wakka's brother. But the two of them overcome it together. Finally, I just want to say that Tidus is probably one of my favorite characters of all time. And that's because he says this a lot in Final Fantasy X at the very beginning of the game, near the end. He always says, "This is my story." And this quote, it's so simple, and it's a quote that I come back to quite often whenever I feel like, you know, my life is spiraling or I don't know what's going on. I'm always like, you know what? This is my story. There was this video essay I watched on YouTube a while ago, and they essentially said that this was a really interesting thing and idea because Tidus, in the grand scheme of the history of Spira, it's not his story. He's literally a side character in Yuna's story. In the history of Spira, Yuna is the one who destroyed Sin. He is this nameless figure alongside her. And even at the end of the game, when Yuna is giving her grand speech, no one knows about Tidus and no one knows about his sacrifice. He gave his all to defeat Sin, knowing that once he did, he would disappear and die. And no one will ever know this except for Yuna and his friends. And yet, because Tidus was the protagonist of Final Fantasy X and you play through his point of view, it is also his story. If there's one thing that Final Fantasy X left with me, it's that we have to take accountability for our lives. And at the end of the day, the only people who are going to know our story and care about our story are the people that love us and the people that we loved. And that's enough. At least it's enough for me. Thanks so much for watching this super long, kind of unhinged, terrible PowerPoint presentation about Final Fantasy X. Even though I spoiled the entire thing, I still think it's super worth it to play it and check it out. The graphics and the gameplay are a little bit outdated. I actually put the game down the first time I tried playing it, and I'm so glad that I picked it back up again because, again, it was truly, truly a transformational game and one of the games that made me who I am today. Okay, thank you.